Okay, for this video, I'm going to show you all the symptoms and then we're going to do the repair, even though it's probably going to be in the title what the repair is going to be about. But anyway, I'll show you all the symptoms and I'll show you how DIY mechanics can go wrong in repairing their vehicles. They can throw money and parts, or whether they do it themselves or pay someone to do it. They can, throw a lot of money away getting to the root cause of the problem. And this particular case, I really don't think you can get lucky right off the bat. And the reason I say you can't get lucky right off the bat is because, well, no one really thinks of the part that's messed up as being messed up, typically. Also, it's extremely difficult for a DIY person to check the part. So they'll check everything else and kind of work their way to it, which is, it's really at the end of the line. So the reason I know what's wrong is because I owned a BMW in the late 90s, and what makes BMWs so wonderfully nice is their suspension components. So they use a nice rubber suspension component part that is mixed in such a way as to provide a truly outstanding driving experience. However, the problem with that is that it wears out rapidly. I mean, there's no perfect world. If you want outstanding suspension performance, there's a price for that. So, anyway, I cannot tell you how many torsion arms I've replaced on BMWs. It's just totally insane. But anyway, getting on to this car, let me show you my first symptom as a user. So I'm driving down a straight road. Let's say it's the straightest road in America, and let's say it's the flattest road in America. And I'm driving down the road, and the steering wheel is level, and I'm going straight. If I let go of the steering wheel, the car goes straight as long as the steering wheel is level. And then all of a sudden I'll notice that I'll have to hold the steering wheel to the side to go straight. So now I'm going down the road straight with the steering wheel cocked. Now, some of the service managers will tell you it's the camber in the road. And nowadays I think you'd go to jail if you slapped him upside the head and told him he was full of shit. But anyway, I've heard that line before. So anyway, this is symptom number one. You're going straight down the road with the steering wheel cocked, and you're going straight down the road with the steering wheel level. So you're thinking what? Alignment? Need an alignment? Maybe the steering gear, the worm gear and the gearing down there before you get to the linkage and the power steering. Maybe you think that's worn because, gosh, what do we have here? 108,000 miles? Well, you think, oh, maybe the steering gear's worn. Well, in the 45 years or more of driving that I've done, I've never had to replace a steering gear linkage. Ever. Never. So, either I'm the luckiest person in the world with all the cars I've owned, or don't worry about that. That's not your problem. When I'm backing into the garage and I cut the wheel all the way to the right and back in, I'll hear a pop. So, that's another symptom. Alright, next symptom is you put your foot on the brake to slow down or stop, and the wheel vibrates. Now I say the wheel vibrates because you might think you have a warped rotor, but you're not feeling it in the pedal. The pedal's not transmitting any signal to your foot. You're feeling it in the steering wheel. The vibration is in the steering wheel, not on your foot. Well, in all my years of driving, I've only thrown a weight one time. So I've had out of balance tires. I had a bent wheel one time, but it was on the back and I really didn't notice it. Actually, I took it to the garage for tires, and when they took the old tire off, they showed me that the rim was bent, and they straightened it before putting on the new tires. You know, I wasn't even aware of the problem till they showed it to me. So throwing a wheel weight, possible, not in this case. All right, let's inspect the wheel. Let's look for something that might say shock absorber or something. Now, unfortunately, most cars are front wheel drive. Guess what that means? The CV axle is keeping you from spinning the wheel like you could in the olden days when you had rear wheel drive cars, so you're kind of screwed there. However, you can look and see if there's any cupping, anything wrong with the tread. That actually looks pretty good to me. Tire looks brand new. All right, so we don't see anything with the tire. It's not bouncing around. What else we got to worry about? Well, unfortunately, that same CV axle is going to make it very difficult for us to see if it's loose. I mean, the whole wheel's turning. I guess I could lock the steering wheel and try it. Let's see what happens then. Okay, I have the steering wheel locked. However, the problem now is I'm on a jack, so the whole car is shaking. I don't hear anything, I don't feel anything. The whole car is shaking, which could throw you off on your diagnostics. So what the heck is going on? Keep going. All right, off comes the wheel. There we go. We'll inspect the wheel and the weights. But it's incredibly difficult to see if you've thrown a weight. All right, tie rod ball joint. You do not want to find this thing sloppy and flipping around, because that's a front end alignment, and it's also extremely difficult to get it anywhere near correct enough to go to the shop. But anyway, you need to check it. I'm not showing really the proper way to check it. You need to get your crowbar in here and see if you can move it. However, I know it's not broken, or I know the ball has not worn in the seat and is flopping around all over the place. All right, wheel bearing. Well, they usually squeal. They usually don't start falling apart to the point where your wheel is just flopping around all over the place. But if you think it's a wheel bearing, you know, again, some of your wrong guesses could be at play. All right, underneath the steering linkage, power steering linkage, and is the roll bar and the roll bar linkage that goes up to the strut. So you want to make sure that's in good shape. Jeez, I can't even move that. That is, I know they're in good shape. Some people like to replace the rubber hold down on the roll bar there, but again, in all my years of driving, I've never seen one so rotten to the core that the roll bar was just flopping around in there. You would actually have to disconnect your stabilizer connection and pretty much remove that in order to get enough slack off of there to exchange that rubber in there. And again, crap, this is a 2009, so, and it's still good, you know, no problems. So we'll move on. The only other ball joint you have to worry about is the control arm ball joint in the bottom of the wheel carrier. And you need to get your crowbar again underneath there, feel around. Luckily for Volvo, it's a couple bolts to take it out and replace it. So that is a pretty easy fix if that's your problem. So you get your crowbar in there and feel it around, look, inspect the boot, see if that's torn, and we'll take a good look at that and rule it out. Okay, strut inspection. Back in the day, I used well, everyone had to take the springs off in order to replace the struts. Now I just buy them all assembled. You know, it doesn't matter how much they cost. You're not going to save that much money and risk your ass over compressing a spring. I guess I was pretty dumb back in the day compressing some of these things down with those, you know, those little things you get from the auto parts store, the free rentals. You just hook it on two springs. It never fits right. It's off to the side and cocked, and then you just take your wrench and, you know, you go one flat at a time and squeeze it down and, you know, change out the strut. But, you know, again, here, no oil's leaking out. You know, I don't see any issues. So, you know, no spring, no coil. It's not worn out. It's relatively new. It's not factory original. It's factory original on the other side, but not here. And so I'm not suspecting anything going on here. There's no evidence of anything going on there. All right, let's keep moving to the actual part. So what's left? If you've ruled out everything, that only leaves one other component. And it's not the CV axle. That's right, it's the control arm. On this car, there's only a lower control arm. So let's take a look at that. So there is the lower control arm. Now the driver's side is easier than the passenger side because the passenger side has two lines going through it. I think they're air conditioning lines. I don't think they're transmission lines. I'd have to look, I'm sorry. Whatever. The lines are such that they go right in front of the bolt heads. And they make it extremely difficult for you to take the bolts out. Because notice this is the end of the bolt. You have to take them out from the other side of the frame. So that, as they say, is now that. The back is a little bit easier. If I can get some light in there. We have a nut on top and a bolt on the bottom, so that's pretty easy. So we have a ball joint up front, which is a part of the wheel carrier. For some vehicles, the lower control arm or the control arm actually has a ball joint in it. So if that fails, you have to replace the entire control arm because the ball joint failed. In this case, our ball joint didn't fail, but we are looking at a control arm issue. When I get it off, I'll show you what the issue is. But you can go in here and you can inspect real close. It's actually the one in the back that is going to give you a little more trouble than the one in the front. I've never seen this front one fail, even though you think that is exercising more than the other. And again, you'll see why when I take it apart, or I'll show you in the new one. So there we are, all zoomed in. Is it bad? Is it good? Who knows? It's at its maximum deflection point. The strut is fully extended. You know, you got all that weight on the wheel carrier, the brakes, the rotor, the wheel bearing, you know, the end of the CV axle, you know, all that weight, it's actually pushing it down to its max travel. So you got all that issue. So, you know, it looks like it's stretched, but is it? Let's look at the new one. All right, as you know, I'm pretty hardcore about using OEM parts. However, with all this crap going on in the world right now, it is extremely difficult to get Volvo parts, especially on an older vehicle. You know, it's on a slow boat from China somewhere. You know, who knows? So anyway, I went with Delphi. I trust that name. I think it's a good brand. Here's the part number for the driver's side. So let's look at it. All right, it comes with a bunch of stuff that's trying to tell you that it's a genuine part. You know, it has this hologram here. You know, to tell you it's genuine. You know, everything about it is trying to tell you that it's a genuine part. And I actually trust this brand pretty good. I've had a lot of dealings with them in general, especially when I worked on GMs. That was a million years ago. But anyway, let's take a look at it. All right, let's get it out of the bag. Let's get the paper out, because that's more important than the part, right? What did they give us? Oh, they gave us some wrapping paper. In the olden days, the whole part was wrapped in that. Gave me a nice thick piece of paper that says it's Delphi Technologies. I guess they changed their name. Said the world is changing, so are we. Now we are now Delphi Technologies. Everyone's a technology now. And then we have instructions in many languages. All right, the instructions are in Great Britain, not English, but it's pretty clear. You know, it says, hey, it's a safety component. Be very careful, you know, pay attention. You should only be a technician if you replace it. You know, test drive, get an inspection, get an alignment. All those are true. So what I want to show you are the two rubber components. There is the front of the vehicle, the rubber component. I guess it's easier to see on this side. Note that it's not a solid piece. However, the part I suspect is right here, and also note that it is not a solid piece. So it's going to go on the vehicle like this. It's the front, this is the back, curves down into the ball joint, nut goes on the bottom, and then of course the passenger side is the opposite. This is the front, this is the back, just like this side, and of course this is flipped around. It's going to curve down. That's the difference between right and left. And there's your L for left, which in America is the driver's side. Okay, during my setup I saw that I'm going to have to take the splash guard off the bottom, air dam, splash guard, whatever you want to call it, in order to gain access to the bolts on the other side. So let me do that. Okay, there you see my setup. I'm going to jack up the control arm a little bit, take a little tension off of that ball joint. Also get it a little level. I really don't want it hanging down when I disassemble it. Also, the bolts are exposed now. Those two bolts right there. Need to take those out. And fun stuff. Let's continue. Alright, I'm ready for removal. I have the control arm. Hopefully I didn't say control rod earlier. Control arm slacked off a little bit, and I have enough clearance to use my impact wrench to get the nut off of there, because it's on there pretty good. I know, because I put it on there. I actually torqued it down to specifications. Alright, let's see if we can all get in here at the same time. Oh, that was easier than I thought. Alright, I have a tool to separate this. Also, there's a place for an Allen wrench to go in the bottom of there to help you take the nut off if you want to use a wrench and an Allen, like if it's spinning freely in there. So I don't want to damage that. So I have this nut on upside down so I can hit it with a hammer if I want to do that, or I'll see if my fork will take it out. I don't have like a pickle fork to go in there because I don't want to damage the boot. So I'm going to wait on this until the end. I'm going to take out the other bolts first, see how it goes. Alright, looks like 3/8 breaker bar. It's kind of small. Let's see if I can get it. Yeah. Definitely got it. 1/2 inch deep well was just a little bit too long. So we're going to go with this. And I can ratchet it out the rest of the way. Okay, so over here we're going to have 21 on the top, and we're going to have 18 on the bottom. So let me get that out. Alright, now I want to set my wrench up in a way where if it spins, it doesn't spin around and hit something and damage something, you know, I guess rip a boot more than bend metal, but still, I want to be careful. Okay, and we're out, and I want to check the ball joint here to make sure that it's not too loose or that I can wiggle it around or feel it impact as I push up and down. It's going left and right a little bit, which is okay. When they're brand new, it's extremely difficult to turn them left and right, but I do not feel any play, so that's good. So, probably not a good DIY job. But anyway, like I said, I put my foot on here, pressed it down till I got the punch started, and then I used the punch to push it down a little further. Am I on camera? I just lifted up on it to push it down a little further, lined up the hole with the bolt, pushed it on through. Next is the CV axle, putting the CV axle back in. And in order to give it clearance, I have the top bolt out and the bottom bolt in, and I just pull it back, and that leaves plenty of room to get the CV axle in. All right, let's get the CV axle back in there. It's not the side with the speed sensor gear. So just put this in. I don't even know if you can put it in the other way. There we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close the wheel carrier up, bring these two pieces together while I'm lining up the CV axle on the wheel bearing, and I'll turn the hub if I need to get the splines aligned any. So let me do that. Alright, I had to move the camera. Everything's aligned. It's in place. I did jiggle the hub a little bit. Now it just closes up. Now I got to bring the CV axle all the way in. So I'll get that done. Alright, I'm going to use the CV axle bolt to pull it in the rest of the way. Should use a new one and put Loctite on it, but you know, don't do as I do. I'm just filming what I'm doing, not telling you what to do. I'll torque that down correctly. Alright, I'm going to tighten these down with the impact, then I'll torque them down also. Now if I over torque it with the impact, if the torque wrench clicks right away, then I'll loosen it up and tighten it back down. Oh, it's always fun to go in the wrong direction first. Alright, I'm going to put the speed sensor in. It's a little 8mm bolt here. And after I do that, I'm going to go around again and torque all the bolts. Make sure everything's tight. Because after I put the speed sensor in, it's rotor, brakes, and tire. So that's, you know. So the first thing I want to do is I want to look down here and make sure I see the cog that the speed sensor picks up. So it's like a tooth gear. So I'll make sure I see that and then put the speed sensor in. Alright, speed sensor. Just a little 1/4 inch, 8mm, you know, nothing too horrific. Then I'll snap the speed sensor routing in here correctly and move on. Okay, before I became a degreed engineer, I was a service tech in industry. I worked at power plants. I worked construction at Wolf Creek, and then I got a job with BMW going around after my degree and working the 8910 program, which all the utilities had to prove that their safety related valves would function under accident conditions because of 3 Mile Island. And so I did some wrenching, but it was a lot less than when I was a non-degree technician. So that's my background. And I've been working on cars, my own cars, since 1975. So, you know, you might see something wrong, out of place, weird, strange, whatever, you know, and that's just me working on my cars. So, you know, I've worked on them since the mid-70s. Actually, a little bit before that, helping my dad when I was a child, but, you know, being an official ASE certified mechanic, no. So, anyway, just letting you know. All right, let's see if I can get this caliper back on here. All right, before I mount the tire, I'm going to put the air dam, splash shield, whatever the heck it is, back underneath the car. Alright, tire back on in a minute. Alright, did an inspection inside the wheel, tread, outside. Make sure everything was okay, no unusual wear marks. And let's get it on here. Get a couple of lug bolts started here. Alright, before I go any further, I got a jack stand underneath the car and get that out. Alright, let me be clear. It's for entertainment value only. Thank you for watching.